안녕하세요. 저는 Stephanie입니다. Senior Community Manager입니다. 반갑습니다. Hello, my name is Stephanie, and I am the Senior Community Manager at Nexon M. And today I'm going to talk to you about community management and how you can bring players to the party. Now, today, I'm going to talk about several points, and I really hope that I can provide you with some excellent information about community management in the West, as well as spark some discussions within your teams. So, first, I want you to introduce you to my team at Nexon M. This is Brittany and Chris. Together, all three of us form the Nexon M Dream Team of Community. Between three of us, we have more than 20 years of experience in community management, both in mobile games as well as PC titles. Our vision at Nexon M is to truly cultivate fans and present a valuable brand across multiple titles. Now, let me tell you a little bit about community management when I first started. Back then, community managers were about placating players. You were there to keep them quiet. You were there on forums and on blogs to talk about the latest updates and then to address CS concerns, but then to just keep them in line. The skill set back then was very minimal. You needed to have passable writing skills, good at troubleshooting, and just a little bit of knowledge about the game. However, since then, community management has evolved way bigger than I ever thought it could, thanks to social media, as well as furthering additions such as YouTube and Twitch. Community managers are now your front line of your brand, and they are there to help drive growth within your game. Today, as you can see, the skill set for community managers is much bigger. You need to have excellent writing skills. You need to be very good with your grammar and be able to be concise and punctual about all of your communications to your community. You also need to be good at interpersonal communication because you are not only talking to your players, but you are talking to the rest of the people in your company. You also need to be good at content strategy because developing a content plan is one of the biggest things that community managers work on, as well as talking to the community and educating them about your game and updates. And there's several other points on here that are also equally as important, but this is still only a fraction of what a community manager in the West needs to be able to do. Now, community managers, we're all about results in the US. So I've distilled it down into 3 key points that community managers look for when it comes to focusing on what you need to get done. And that is promoting player engagement, developing initiatives for increasing revenue, and establishing a feedback loop between players and developers. Now, I'm going to give you an example from one of our titles for the first 2 points with our game Monster Squad. When myself and Brittany first started at Nexon M, Monster Squad was getting any community love, and it was about to be on sunset mode. However, we still felt that the game could have more to it, so we started regular content posting plans and started campaigns, one of which being Halloween Island. We started not too long before Halloween, so we wanted to make sure that we could do something fun for the players, especially since it is very important to run live ops events around holidays, as they do very well. So, we wanted to do an island that players could go and then fight to get these 3 cute monsters and a cute little pet up there to add to their collection. So when this launched, not only did we see a spike in our viral page impressions, as well as our organic impressions, our revenue peaked throughout this event and nearly tripled what Monster Squad was making monthly in just the month of October. For the last point about the dialogue between the players and the publisher, I'm going to use dominations as an example. For Dominations, we ran an event that was inspired along the lines of March Madness, which is a basketball tournament in the United States that occurs every year for college teams. This event took the 8 nations and put them in a bracket tournament. Players would then have to PvP in order to get the highest average number of battles to determine the winner who would advance to the next round. Now, the one unfortunate thing is a few days before I wanted to start this event, the players were very upset about a few bugs that were in the game. So I wanted to delay it. And some people did fight back about wanting to run it regardless and to stay on schedule. But I pushed, saying that the players would appreciate if we would work on some bugs and wait for the fixes to be pushed out and then run the event. So I got my way, and I got to push the event out by a week. This ultimately made players happier because we were able to roll out some fixes for some critical bugs at the time, and then they could focus on this fun event and root for their best nation to win, which Korea won. Now, communicating is a big part of being a community manager. So there's a big dialogue that you have to keep going between publishers and players. So I'm going to touch on that a bit. We have to be well organized and insightful in order to give consistent and tactical communications. This means anything from patch notes to known bugs to even just running campaigns. And we need to be able to talk about these to the players as well as to our internal stakeholders. So I've been in the game industry for way too long. And one of my positions, I used to work for a German publisher that had a game that was developed in Hong Kong while I lived and worked in New York. So it was very difficult, but I learned a lot about communicating between internal teams as well as with players, that I have distilled these learnings into 5 key steps that I think are very helpful. First, weekly product syncs with all your internal stakeholders, external stakeholders with the dev team. These are critical so that you can remain on top of what's currently going on, what the players are saying, and everything you need to know about upcoming campaigns and updates. Also, for teams split between several offices, you want to meet in person whenever possible. Now, I know this can be tough sometimes, especially since I have worked for several international companies, but even if you do a video Skype call, or as I've been so lucky to meet with the community team here at Nexon Korea this week, that helps a lot because you can share a lot of knowledge and get to know your teammates, which facilitates in this dialogue internally within the publishers. You also want to keep a calendar of events, promotions, and campaigns 1 to 3 months out. Not only does this help the community manager to stay organized, but it can also help your internal stakeholders to realize the importance of what is upcoming and know everything that you're planning to do. You also need to understand the key community KPI, engagement. You want players to be engaged and excited and talking about your game even when they're not in your game. And that is what a community manager is there to do. They can help keep your passion going at all times, and your campaigns, game announcements, and updates can really help. You also need to establish a regular update cadence. You need to make sure that you are not only updating your internal stakeholders, but the players as well. For example, at Nexon M, myself and my team, we share a weekly report on each of our products that we manage internally and with the dev teams once a week. We also try to do bi-weekly or monthly updates to our players about the state of the game. One prime example being the State of the Nations that we post once a month for Dominations. So a new thing on the scene for community managers is influencers. These are players that can range from your everyday player just making little fan art drawings to the high-end players like PewDiePie or Captain Sparkles, who stream and make YouTube videos. They are your way to energize your brand and to create new fans. They can sometimes even help to legitimize your game as well as your brand. Any diehard fans can be an influencer. Cosplayers, players who make fan art, who make poems, who create videos, who even mail you in fan art are your influencers. You want to elevate them at any chance you get so that they can feel loved by you, establish a personal connection, and go to their friends to explain about how amazing your team is and your game, and that all of their friends need to start playing. Also, your influencers can be higher end, as I mentioned with Captain Sparkles and PewDiePie. Brands and companies have started to partner with these personalities who have these large social followings and influence in order to further a specific call to action and to skyrocket a game's popularity. Blizzard has done this with their game StarCraft II, and this guy, Day 9. Day 9 started in his basement streaming StarCraft because he loved that game, and he loved playing it, and he wanted to share that with everyone else. So he not only started that and built up a following, but he has gotten so big to become a brand and part of Forbes' 30 Top 30, and has even begun to partner with big companies like Red Bull and Blizzard to run international StarCraft tournaments. He has become so big and so influential that when Blizzard was going to launch Hearthstone, they had him on board from day one. And he helped to build that spark and fire and passion for Hearthstone right from the beginning to get the game on the scene with players. Now, as you saw, we are a very small team at Nexon M with 3 people, but we have set ourselves up to make huge impacts. And this is because we use a vast arsenal of tools that are in our toolbox. These help us to plan, execute, measure, and scale initiatives as we're developing them for each of our game titles. I want to start by sharing with you probably the meat of the talk that you're here for is our toolbox. This is Sprout Social. And unfortunately, the screenshot doesn't do it justice, and I wish I could have it animated. But this is our main CRM tool for daily monitoring for Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. We are able to see all of our dialogues with players, any comments they leave on Facebook, anytime they use a specific hashtag that we are tracking, anytime they tweet at us on Twitter, or anytime they use a hashtag on Instagram to talk about our game. And we see all of that in one space, and we're able to reply to it from one space. We are also able to use Sprout Social to create a content calendar every month where we can pre-schedule all of our posts and images and even videos to these channels ahead of time. And we can see how our plans fit and if we need to move anything around, and it makes it very easy. Sprout Social also allows us to track many KPIs. We are able to pull reports every week on how our games are doing for engagement, likes, reach, and any other KPI you could possibly think of for Facebook or Twitter. This tool has helped us save time in order to monitor everything and even reply to players on a daily basis. The next tool in our toolbox is AppBot. AppBot we use to monitor reviews in the App Store and the Google Play Store. Through this, we are able to then see a general community sentiment letter grade, as well as see what reviews players are leaving for our games, and if there's any emerging issues coming out. We then take this information to our teams every week to give our communities a letter grade for sentiment. And sentiment can be hard to track, but we have found that AppBot is very accurate in what it tells us. Our next tool is WooBox. This is what we use to run contests, sweepstakes, and various engagement pieces, like this piece right here about the Battle of the Generals. This was a Facebook post that we used where we set it up so that if players commented with a specific hashtag, in this case, Joan or Nobunaga, to vote which general is their favorite. And that bar in the middle would update in real time on Facebook with which general was winning at the time. WooBox is very good at what they do, and we can set up all kinds of contests. And it makes it very easy for us because we don't have to reach out to our dev teams in order to make extra web pages for contests. The final tool, and easily one of our more important tools next to Sprout Social, is WikiHub. This is where we host all of our information for community. When Brittany and I first started at Nexon M, we had zero clue of what the previous community team who had all left was doing. They had not really recorded any of their policies or procedures, and we wanted to change that. Thankfully, with the leadership of our CS and community, Chris Whittington, he helped us set up WikiHub in order for us to have a singular location for all of our information. So now, any of our policies, procedures, or even information about games is in one place and will not be lost. Plus, this helps us with onboarding any new people onto our community team, which helps with our scaling. Now, in closing, to be successful with community in the West, you need to have a tactical mind. You have to be able to think really hard and well about what does a community want, what do they respond to, and what are the best ways to continue talking with them. You also need to maintain strong organization. There are many moving parts in community management, so making sure that you are organized and can get priorities on your task list in sync will be very good for you. You also need to leverage your influencers. Everything from the kid who drew a little fan art in his notebook from school to someone like Day 9 who reaches millions of people. You want to be able to elevate them, work with them, and cultivate those relationships. You also need to develop a robust toolbox. What I showed you, this is the toolbox that works for us at Nexon M, but you may also have other tools that you feel work best for your groups. However, it's always great to learn, and that's what I love about being a community manager, is I share with every other community manager what I'm using, and they share back with me what they're using. So, it looks like we have a few minutes for questions, which I'll be happy to take. 감사합니다. Thank you.